When you allow your consciousness to soar beyond the bounds of your human creation, you begin to understand how glorious is the body of God. Many often find themselves immersed in the day-to-day life that does not allow them to forge their true identity. Therefore, there is a breach in the flow of what the presence of God would convey to the outer vehicles, moment to moment. And many find themselves wanting for that communion, striving in all manner of ways, but most of which are the ways of the world. You have come to know certain disciplines of the law, where you are able to call forth that light, call forth that momentum of God, and establish that presence, if not for the entirety of your day-to-day life, certainly in those critical times when you must make the wise decisions for your life stream. The will of God for many is intangible, for they have been so long under the guise of their own human will, the human ego, the desires of the emotional body and of the flesh, not having learned how to forge the communion with God by the disciplines that you many have come to know. Leave them bereft upon the shores, beaten by the human riptides of thought and feeling. This we, the ascended ones, would not wish for any of the sons and daughters of God. But there must be the ability for the awakening of each life stream to make that decision to be within the presence of God. For ofttimes it is not even known that a decision must be made. For long, long ago, the life stream left the precinct and the radiance of the presence of God and entered into worldly living, masquerading as the nature of God. Many have entered into so-called religious studies, both East and West, buying into the understanding woven out of the human mind of another, that surely God would bestow upon them all of the gifts and graces of God, if they would but follow that particular way. Where has the Christ discrimination come? Within the fabric of the lives of sons and daughters of God. Is it so lost that many will not find their way, save to go through great cataclysm? In speaking to you, the disciples and students of the Ascended Master teachings, you understand well what I am speaking of. Many of you have come to this awareness because you had no place to turn save to that internal God, your own I am presence, and to be in the midst of a company of others that believed as you believed, that honored the presence of God as you honor. You were called to come to this altar. How blessed you are to know that inner voice of your own God presence, to have received the prompting and had the clarity of consciousness and Christ's discrimination, to recognize the Ascended Master vibration, the teachings, and the consciousness that would resonate with your own threefold flame, and the momentum that your God presence desired for you to follow. So once more you are called to follow, but not the human ego, the human pride, or the human consciousness, but to follow the voice of your own God presence, and have that voice expanded, multiplied by your communion with the holy angels, the ascended and cosmic beings. When you make the election to go beyond where you have already experienced, you will find there are new vistas, new horizons for you to continue your journey. For though you have embraced the presence of God, have made room for that presence in your life, and daily strive to maintain your disciplines, I, Himalaya, am here to announce to you there is more. How glorious it is to know that there is more of the presence of God that you can attain in your life. No matter how far you travel in consciousness, how much you expand the light in your vehicles, how disciplined you may be at present, there is always more of God to realize. The realization means that you have internalized the fabric of God in all of the varied dimensions that God would have you maintain. For at any given time and cycle, you may find a new dimension that your mighty I Am presence has elected for you to begin to draw into the realization of your life. This is why one can never become bored in the sameness of God, because, blessed hearts, the presence of God is always changing, always expanding, revealing new dimensions, new awareness, new momentum. And that, blessed hearts, is the glorious opportunity that abounds in the grace that you are bestowed by God by striving, listening, absorbing the consciousness of God, adhering to every detail of consciousness that you are required to obtain. There are all manner of ways in which your day-to-day life is utilized by your own God presence to teach you. Any aspect of the qualities of God, the virtues of the Christ, and all of the varied dimensions within each of those ideal ways of life that you must live. Your presence sets in motion things within your life, situations, relationships, so that you might have the awareness that God is at work in your life, and as you make the right choices, always allowing for the presence of God to flow through the threefold flame of your heart and unfurl into those areas of life you will be fulfilling the will of God. When you move into the Christ consciousness, allowing for your own momentum of God good to be that driving force in your life, to clear away the debris that has, in times past, called you into a situation, a path that led from the presence of God, that did not allow for the will of God to be present. Then, blessed hearts, you will begin to have more of the internalization of that Christ consciousness taking hold in your life. You cannot take it for granted. It is a constant that must be maintained. And surely as my presence will establish in your world a certain increment of the momentum of my own mastery, you, blessed hearts, must have something that momentum can play upon. There must be, even if so very slight, an erg of energy established as the will of God, already present and active in your life, for you to begin to appreciate how that momentum of yours can be expanded in my presence. Likewise, you must have the awareness in your outer consciousness of your own vibration. You must take stock of who you are, how you approach life. What is it that absorbs most of your time and attention? What do you wish to gain as a result of your attention fed into those areas of life? Do you love the brothers and sisters of light with whom you come in contact? Is there the honor and the respect of the flame of God that is present in their life? These are questions, blessed hearts, that are the constant in your life, that allow your own mighty I Am presence to illumine, to your outer mind the areas that require the change that you have come to know is that right change, that right momentum that you desire within your heart. To ignore the promptings that you have received of the change that is required is a travesty against your own God presence, to say nothing of the momentums that the ascended and cosmic beings have drawn forth by dispensation for your life stream. Taking responsibility for one's life and allowing for that flame of God that truly burns upon the altar of your heart to expand and hold fast to the level of consciousness that your presence has conveyed as God direction and God good in your life. This blessed hearts will establish momentums for you that lead to your own attainment and mastery. But if you are constantly ignoring what your presence announces to you upon the altar of your heart, by way of correction, change, direction, clarity that you must obtain, all of these blessed hearts, which would bring you into a greater association and communion with your own God presence. If there is the constant ignorance of those promptings of God, then you may find for a time that you will be required to stand in your own external light, making your way back to that communion once more with God. Does this sound harsh? Does this portend an uncaring God in your life? It is not, and it does not mean that God, your own presence, does not love you. On the contrary, it is the greatest love of God that is always demanding the very best from you, requiring that you do your part in striving, trying with every erg of energy of your being, and then holding fast to the light of God as you await the direction of your presence. No initiate on the path has ever been able to go around these initiations. The very ascended and cosmic beings that address you from this altar have learned and passed these same initiations, garnering great momentum in the awareness of God and how to draw forth that momentum of God consciousness at will. You are a son and daughter of God. You have all of the opportunity availed to you that you can utilize wisely. Where there is misuse of opportunity, it will drop away, leaving you to wonder and strive to get back to whatever has gone wrong, how you have missed the mark, what must change and be transmuted, what momentum of God must be drawn into your life through your disciplines. All of these questions you should ask if you find yourself outside of the daily communion and momentum of the nature of your own God presence flooding into your life. How I would love to have each one who is a sincere student of the Ascended Master teachings that desires their ascension in the light and the mastery and attunement with their own God presence, to come and be in my presence, if only for 1 hour, in my retreat. Surely you must realize that a certain level of attainment must already have been garnered to enter my retreat and be in my presence in that retreat. For when I come to you, there is a mitigating of the momentum according to your attainment where you are. But when you come to me, You have the full thrust of my momentum, and thus you must be able to hold enough of your own presence of God in your vehicles of consciousness, even in the Christ consciousness, so that you might hold to the conscious awareness of what is at work in our communion. Attainment, for its own sake, does not come by merely the ascended masters giving you their attainment. Our momentum in God consciousness is to show you an example that you can register on your vehicles of consciousness as vibration, as teaching and instruction, to have a co-measurement once you are in your own force field, in the quiet, in the silence, and register whether or not you remember the momentum when you were in Himalaya's presence. Is that momentum still with you? Or has it faded away, leaving you to look around and wonder who you truly are? I would have you ever constantly searching out your own God presence, even in the midst of all your affairs. For it is when you are capable of holding on to that momentum of the presence of God, that your own God presence can flow easily into your affairs, directing you as to the right action, the right vibration, and ultimately fulfilling the divine will of your presence. Holding to the consciousness of your own God presence is not easy, but it does come more effortless as you practice. For yes, blessed hearts, eventually you will gain such a momentum that within a blink of an eye you will be in the heart of your own God presence. And your presence will speak volumes to you. Instructing you even in the immediacy of the hour. Do not think that merely because you have not already reached the mountain top where your presence resides, that somehow it is not possible for you. It only means, blessed hearts, that you must continue to whittle away all of the rough edges of your life, refining, honing, fashioning every aspect of your life to be that diamond of the Christ consciousness that resides upon the altar of your heart. You did not come to be the outer person that you are today overnight. Many lifetimes of living outside of the brooding presence of God has established its mark upon you, and thus you must have patience. But all the while you have patience, you are striving with all your might, for you know that one lifetime is really very short in comparison to all of the many lifetimes in which you have been in the physical body. And thus, you desire to accomplish all that your presence has foretold that you are capable of in this incarnation. The presence has not only announced this to your own heart flame as the written record of this lifetime for you, but it has telegraphed that will throughout the presence of the will of God, in that allness of God, and thus all of the vastness of God will coalesce and come together for you individually when you make yourself ready for the will of God. Holding fast to that will is not easy. It requires you to oft times go through what you have heard as the eye of the needle, refining all of your vehicles of consciousness so that when you are called in that refinement to move into the vastness of the consciousness awareness of the mind of God, you will not be held back by lesser vibrations than the Christ. I hold in my gaze your victory, so that as you go through all that is required of you in this lifetime by your presence, you will have the attunement with the heart of God, sufficient to receive the reinforcements that I, Himalaya, and every ascended and cosmic being would bestow upon you, so that at the end of the day you will rest in the arms of your own God presence, knowing that all that you have accomplished in that day is worthy to lay upon the altar of the Most High. What a glorious day that would be, when every erg of energy that has passed through you has registered a high enough vibration to be forever within the momentums of your causal body as God victory. Let your crown receive the fire of illumination's flame, so that you might recognize what is right before you, that your presence desires to reveal. Let your crown so fire that you are elevated in consciousness sufficiently to draw the mother light of the Kundalini fires through your spiritual centers and align you in that rod of power that transfers to your outer vehicles on the instant the will of God. I, Himalaya, will reside at this altar for the next 24 hours for those who wish to come and bathe in my momentum of the will of God. Let the force field be sealed and protected. And let your consciousness be so bathed in my momentum that you will forever love the will of God.